Hey guys, how we doing? How's everybody?
How are you?
Good. So just wanted to provide an opportunity to answer any questions that you might have about the television deal that was announced this morning. Don't have a lot of answers, as you already know most of the details, if not all. Excited, a great opportunity for all of our athletes in the Big Ten Conference, and including UCLA and USC when they transition in 24. Unbelievable exposure for our institutions and the student athletes we serve. So really excited about a new diversity in our platforms, having Fox, who's been an unbelievable partner over the years, and then to add powerhouses like CBS and NBC and what they bring it's a phenomenal opportunity. Having a traditional linear network is important, but to be able to dip our toe a little bit stronger into the direct to consumer streaming is another great opportunity. So really excited about it, and you guys have all the details from the release, so I'll answer any questions you guys may have.
Can you fill in the financial blank?
No, I can't. There's a lot of details still being worked out on the financials. It will be significant, but it's not going to be what people are reporting.
Yeah, I mean, when people are saying $1 billion, do you think, I mean, is that in the ballpark? Or
Well, you know, so people, and I don't know what their math is, but they're probably looking at the older deal and projecting what the current deal is and doing math. We'll just have to wait and see, and as they finalize the actual contracts.
You know,
Bill?
I was told that you and President Johnson asked hard questions of Kevin Warren, and during the whole process, what were the kind of things that you were concerned about? Not concerned, but what were your issues that you really wanted to make sure were addressed?
Well, I think first and foremost, we needed to, and great question, Bill, we needed to make sure that we had partners who understood who we are. And we're going to promote not just the games, but promote the student athletes and promote the institutions. You look at what NBC did with providing $100,000 per school in advertising dollars to be able to talk about the institutions. It harkens me back to when we did the Fox BTN deal at the beginning. We had institutional dollars in those packages for commercials and things of that nature. So that was important. We want partners who, and ESPN and ABC was that way before, but we wanted partners who understood that. Secondly, the diversity in the marketplace that we are going to be in the top 3 markets in the country, we wanted to make sure there was access. So dipping our toe in the direct consumer through streaming, we needed to make sure we had a partner that understood. We're still sensitive to that. You know, there's people in our country and in our environment here in Ohio that struggle with that concept. So we need to try and ease our way into that and get people comfortable. It's kind of like mobile ticketing. And so we got to get there. So we wanted partners that way. But the money was huge because our expenses are going up every single year for all of our schools. And so whoever came to the table with good packages, and the preliminary packages are outstanding, and that was important to us as well.
And what are your thoughts on not having ESPN be a part of it?
ABC, ESPN were great partners, and we enjoyed tremendous success with them as partners, and they're doing great for all of higher education and in college athletics. So it's a different marketplace, different world now with different platforms, and I'm going to miss them, but we have new great platforms moving forward. And Clay, you were next.
You said that a lot of particulars you don't know.
Mhm.
How many appearances on each network?
Right.
Scheduling. How does the league look in 24?
Yep.
A lot of things still to be.
Yeah,
hashed out.
we have a lot to do. We've talked about no divisions, but we haven't finalized that decision. We need to come together and finalize that decision. We need to bring in Mike Bone and Martin Jarman into those conversations and start meetings around that. The television partners need to finalize the picks. Who picks first, who picks second, those type of things. We need to finalize if we go no divisions, then what's our tiebreakers? I mean, there's just so many different things we need to ultimately get to that we just haven't got to yet because we're so focused on this. And Kevin's done a great job with this. The negotiations were like he said publicly, a chessboard, and really the moves were unbelievable, and he did a great job in masterminding this. But now we got to get down to the work. We got to get to the details. We have 8 games on Peacock, so how are those games determined and how they're selected? We have made a determination that in the future, you won't know our conference games for the next year until sometime in October. We're used to having our games like 5 years, 10 years out. Well, that's going to change. And so we got to finalize that, what's the date? And so it's kind of like we're waiting for basketball schedules for the season right now. Right. So it's a new culture for us, but it's important. And so there's just a lot of work to be done. And we're ready to roll up our sleeves with our new partners in the mix and try and determine what's best for us.
What is based on a scheduled strength kind of thing, or how our teams are projected to be the next year?
Don't know. We got to figure that out. We know it's a model we got to go to and include our television partners in that process and structure it and have them be a part of the conversation. Now that we have them, we can begin that conversation and determine that type of thing. Is it based upon who's going to be strong next year, or based upon dates or whatever? Go from there.
CJ said he believes that the athletes should get a portion of the TV revenue. You're a big advocate for NIL from them. Is that something that they're considering? Is that still to be determined?
Yeah, that's something we haven't discussed, but frankly, they're already getting a piece of the television revenue. When you aggregate in, what you all familiar with our circle of care and all the people that we put around our student athletes and trainers, strength coaches, sports psychologists, nutritionists, academic counselors, and, just keep going around the list. And that's how we fund those positions. That's how we fund this building. That's how we fund this new field. That's how we fund the new field in the stadium. That's how we fund the security that we'll need for 103,000 people in the stadium and maybe 30,000 outside for the tailgating while the game is going on. So they actually already get a piece. It might not be directly in their pocket, but it's an investment in them. So that doesn't mean that the scholarship model might not change. I mean, this is the first year for us of the Austin distribution, where every single student athlete is getting over $5,900, which is about a $6 million hit to our budget. So they're already getting it. So do we do more down the road? Possibly, and that will be discussed, but not in the form of pay for play. Otherwise, I'm out.
Hey, Gene, along those lines, Nick Saban estimated that investment in each of these athletes at $400,000 a year. Is that, you talk about $40 million for football and 100 kids. Is that?
That's a possibility. I haven't done that math. That's a really good exercise to do. I haven't done that since I was at Iowa State, but yeah, that's a good one. When you prorate the personal investment that is made in an individual athlete, equipment, massage therapists, you just keep going. Some of them do acupuncture. You just keep going. The dollars that we pay, that's a huge investment in your future. And that's why we have many of our student athletes who leave us and go pro or have an opportunity to get a job before they even graduate. And so we make a huge investment in developing them as people, as well as developing as athletes. So Nick's probably somewhere spot on in that neighborhood. Now I'm going to have to go back and do that exercise. But yeah, that's spot on. Haven't done that long time.
We have time for a couple more. I want to make sure Christy from Channel 4 gets a question in. Adam, did you get one yet? Okay. Christy and then Adam.
Okay.
To your right, Gene. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I was just wondering if you could touch on fan experience. You touched on it a little bit with the streaming and keeping fans in mind and things like that. But when it comes to access with this new deal, how were the fans in mind and how are they going to have more access to the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, it's first of all, you're going to have, and those of you who were here when Fox came on board in BTN, there's going to be a high level of excitement with CBS and NBC. And all that intellectual property that exists within those organizations are going to come to bear to make sure we engage the fans. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but I do know that, out of the chute, they're going to be jacked up and they're going to be brainstorming on ways to make sure that we continue to engage the fans. When you look at the fact that NBC has NFL Sunday night think about the Big Ten being mentioned in that space. And if you're, a Cleveland Browns fan like I am, I still am regardless, because that's my home. That's where I grew up. That's where I was bred. At the end of the day, if I'm watching that game, hopefully I hear about Big Ten, and I'm a fan. So I think there'll be different things over time, but hard to say what they'll be. But I know that they're excited, and I know those producers and they're jacked. It's going to be fun.
Go ahead, Adam.
Obviously, football drives so much of these conversations. I've heard from fans today that like hoops and other sports there's questions about how easily it's going to be to access games and what those challenges might look like for sports that aren't football. Can you speak to where you hope this deal brings some of those other sports and what challenges you foresee with trying to figure out how to broadcast events with basketball and other sports?
Well, it won't be hard. It'll just be different. Fox is going to broadcast basketball games, and CBS is going to broadcast basketball games. For the first time, our women's basketball championship game will be nationally televised, so it won't be difficult to access it. It'll just be different. Those games that end up on Peacock, yes, for some people it'll be different unless you're a Yellowstone fan like I am. You got Peacock already. So there's a reality that the platforms will be there. I think you guys have the charts, and it shows how many basketball games will be on Fox, CBS, and NBC. So I think it will be different, but not really that hard. Now, when it gets into some of the direct to consumer stuff, that might be more challenging for some. But otherwise, the linear platforms are just going to be what channel you turn to.
Is there any possibility that basketball games can still remain on ESPN? Some reports that there's some package involved.
Yeah, that's a possibility. There's some inventory there, but I don't see that right now unless something happens. Obviously, Chris and I had a great conversation about this. In our non-conference schedule, we'll schedule games against teams whose television package is ESPN, ACC, for example, or SEC, for example. So when we go there, we still have a presence on the ESPN. So there'll be other schools in our league that will do that naturally. I'm sure, Tom at Michigan State will do the same. So we'll have a presence there. It'll just be probably not at home.
We're going to go Austin, Nathan, Austin, and Dan, and then we're going to wrap up.
Gene, so before you said that expenses are rising every year,
Yeah.
and that's why this deal was important. Is that just because of the usual cost increases annually with operations, or are you already looking ahead, regardless of what your personal feelings are about paying players,
That's right.
or revenue sharing, whatever, that there needs to be sort of a stockpile building?
There you go. What do you want me to answer now? So you're right on. I mean, our current expenses, we have fixed expenses that just go up every year. Personnel services, game operations, officials, things of that nature just naturally go up. But then, to your point, looking down the road, does our scholarship model change to a point where we actually think about what other things beyond the Austin dollars do we allocate to the scholarship model to provide student athletes extra benefits? Because things may change in that space. So yeah, I'm looking down the road, but I'm also looking at that 5 to 7% that we have in increases every single year in some uncontrollable costs. I mean, travel costs this year for our teams, this is not just football, this is all sports, have gone up significantly. And so we have to charter some teams more now. So that cost will rise. So I can just keep going on, but you're right. It's current expenses, and then I'm kind of trying to look down the road a little bit and praying that we have a 12-team playoff and there's more money there too.
Austin?
How would you structure it?
Gene, do you think that the NBC piece increases the odds of Notre Dame joining the Big Ten? I know that the contract allows for expansion, the way it's written.
Yep.
Do you think that puts pressure on them?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna start with my normal. I love my alma mater. Got a great education there. And assume we're gonna beat them on September 3rd, like we historically have done. I don't know. I really don't. I know that having ESPN helps. Having NBC helps, but they're so ingrained in that independent culture I think scheduling in the future may have something to do with it. I think whatever happens with the CFP and access may have something to do with it. But I'm not so sure this is going to move the needle that much for them. They really cherish their independence.
Well, final question.
But I love
Dan.
my alma mater.
Gene, I know
Except for we're playing.
you've been someone who's advocated for opening up the college ball playoff to multiple
Mm-hmm.
media partners. How integral do you think the Big Ten will be in those conversations now that you do have these 3 different partners that could potentially be a part of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that provides another provides more avenues for those teams when it does go out to market to bid, because they will have familiarity in this space. And glad President Johnson's on the CFP board of managers, and my colleague Ward Manuel's on the selection committee. So Big Ten has a presence in that space. And so yeah, hopefully NBC and CBS now will bid on that when that opportunity presents itself.
And follow up on that, I know you've been an advocate of the CFP potentially creating its own governing body for college football. There was a report yesterday that was discussed this week. Are you seeing more momentum toward that becoming a possibility?
There's been discussions, but there's been discussions about other models. And my intent in throwing that out was just to make sure we start discussing our governance structure. For us to sit here and think that the governance structure we have is working, it's naive, it's flawed. You get your head in the sand. So I just wanted to create the conversation when I threw that out there. Although I do like that model, there's some other models that others have presented that are viable, and I'm curious about those. So the discussion around a new governance structure has gotten traction. The one that I proposed under the CFP has gotten some traction, as well as others. So that's what's most important. We're talking about it now. Who knows what the answer will be, but we're talking finally, and that's good. So I'm glad to hear that the president's talked about it. It's good news.
Are you in favor of going no divisions?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. First time somebody's really asked me that question. But yeah, I am. Yeah. Well, I would go. To me, I'd go next week. But obviously, it's a process. So I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable going no divisions. In that, like I said earlier, we need to talk about tiebreakers. Those type of things, right? So we got to get down to the details around that. And but I also want to hear what our television partners have to say, which is why we waited until we knew who they are. I don't know what their perspectives are. I want to hear it. So I'm in favor of it. I think it'll be better for us, particularly when UCLA and USC gets into the mix. Another reason we'll announce the next year's schedules in October. It gives you more flexibility to be creative. And so I'm in favor of it.
Great. Gene, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Gene.